I've always loved Halloween. The thrill of costumes, the eerie glow of jack-o'-lanterns, and the sense that something dark and mysterious lurked just beyond the light. This year, I was more excited than ever. My friends and I had planned what was supposed to be the best Halloween party yet. We rented out an old abandoned mansion just on the outskirts of town. You know, the kind of place with creaky floorboards, cobweb-covered corners, and a reputation for being haunted that the locals love to gossip about. We thought it was perfect. After all, what's a Halloween party without a little scare? The night started like any other Halloween. Costumes were elaborate, witches, ghosts, and ghouls mingling around the dimly lit rooms, fake cobwebs hanging from every doorway. There was laughter, drinks, and that familiar spooky vibe. As the evening wore on, a group of us decided to explore the mansion. It was too big and too creepy not to. That's when things took a turn. "Hey, let's go down to the basement," Tom, my friend dressed as a zombie, suggested. We all laughed, but there was something about his tone that made me shiver. The basement of a haunted mansion? It sounded straight out of a horror movie, but our curiosity got the best of us. Isn't that always the case? There were 6 of us in total: Tom, Katie, Lauren, Mike, Jessica, and me. We grabbed some flashlights and headed downstairs, the old wooden steps groaning under our feet. The basement was dark, the air thick with a musty smell like it hadn't been touched in years. There was something unsettling about the silence. Even the music from the party upstairs seemed muffled, like we'd stepped into another world. We spread out, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. I could hear everyone joking around, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The farther we went, the more it felt like we weren't alone, and then we found it. Tucked away in the corner was an old door, nearly falling off its rusty hinges. It didn't look like it had been opened in decades. "I dare you to open it," Jessica teased, her voice echoing through the dark space. I laughed it off at first, but the door seemed to call to me. My heart raced as I reached for the handle, the cold metal sending a shiver through my hand. With a creak, it opened. Behind the door was a small, dimly lit room. At first, it looked like just another part of the basement, crumbling stone walls, dirt floors. But then we saw it. In the center of the room was a circle of candles, all burned down to the wick, and on the floor, something that looked like dried blood. We all froze. "What the hell is this?" Mike whispered. No one answered. The air felt heavier, suffocating. It was as if the room itself was alive, watching us, waiting. Then Katie screamed. I whipped around, my flashlight flickering over her face, pale with terror. "What is it?" I asked, my voice trembling. She pointed, and that's when I saw it. Faint shadows moving along the walls, but there was nothing casting them. We turned to run, but the door slammed shut with a force that shook the room. The temperature dropped instantly, and our breath was visible in the cold. Panic set in. We pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was like something, or someone, was holding it shut. The shadows on the walls began to take shape, figures looming closer. I could hear whispering, soft at first, but growing louder. Words I couldn't understand, but the meaning was clear. We weren't supposed to be there. My heart raced as I searched for an escape, but the room seemed to be shrinking. The shadows moved faster now, circling us like predators. Lauren started sobbing, her hands pressed to her ears as if trying to block out the whispers. Tom grabbed a chair and tried to break the door down, but with every swing, the whispers turned into screams. Katie collapsed to her knees, her eyes wide with terror as she pointed to the corner. I followed her gaze, and there, standing just beyond the circle of candles, was a figure. A woman, her face pale and twisted, her eyes dark pits that seemed to swallow the light. She didn't move, but the shadows around her did, writhing and reaching for us. "We have to get out," I shouted, my voice barely audible over the rising screams. Jessica screamed as something cold brushed past her, knocking her to the ground. The figure stepped closer, its face contorting into a grotesque smile. My blood ran cold. We weren't going to make it out. I could feel it in my bones. Suddenly, the door burst open. We didn't wait to see what happened next. We ran, scrambling up the stairs, pushing and shoving to get out of that basement. The air was thick with fear, every breath a struggle as we bolted out of the mansion and into the night. We didn't stop until we reached the car. No one spoke. We just drove, the silence heavy, each of us lost in our own terror. When we finally pulled over, all I could do was look at the mansion in the distance, its dark windows staring back at me like eyes in the night. We never talked about it after that night. We all pretended it didn't happen, that it was just some sick Halloween prank gone too far. But deep down, I knew. That thing we saw, whatever it was real. And sometimes when I'm alone, I still hear it, the whispers in the dark.